Let's talk about League One. With 12, 13 or 14 games left of the season for most teams in this division, let's have a quick little look at what the bookmakers think the table will look like when we get to the end of the season in May. If you like your League One content, do be sure to make sure and drop a like. Let's go for 199 likes. Let's do it, and make sure to subscribe as well. There's so much to play for. Relegation and survival, the playoff race and the automatic race as well. So let's get straight into it, down the bottom and working our way up. This is what the bookmakers have gone for as their bottom four. Forest Green Rovers coming in 24th place we'll start with. Forest Green Rovers obviously won League Two last season. Let's talk about how brilliant they were. They were absolutely fantastic. Yes, they had a little wobble towards the end, but they did wrap up the title and I thought they were fantastic. And coming into this season, I thought they could do all right. I thought they'd have a battle to survive, but they could be one of those teams that just about get over the line. But what we're seeing at the moment is not going to be enough for them to survive. They are currently bottom, 8 points adrift of survival, and they are in pretty poor form at this moment in time. I just don't really see a way that Forest Green Rovers are able to shut this gap enough with time running out this season. 8 points is quite a hard mountain to climb when you're that bottom team. So Forest Green, I do agree with the bookies putting you bottom. It's not impossible you'll survive, but it is unlikely at this moment in time. Morecambe come in at 23rd, which I think is harsh when at this moment in time they're 20th, which is just above the bottom four. It's very tight between some of these teams though, so the bookmakers are tipping Morecambe to just drop down a couple places, which could happen, but I do think it's very harsh. Morecambe fans, you could look at this in two ways. You could be annoyed with the bookies, or you can try and prove them wrong. Morecambe did prove a few people wrong by staying up last year, so why not? They might be able to do it this year. 22nd, we have Cambridge United, who are currently in the bottom four at this moment in time, but they are only 2 points adrift. If it stays this tight, it will go to the final day and Cambridge will still have a chance, but Cambridge United are a team I'm starting to fancy to go down. They had a very decent start, but they're really starting to fall off a cliff, and if this gap opens up any more, then Cambridge United could be cut adrift, and it's very worrying for the Cambridge fans, of course. 21st then, the last team to get relegated are Accrington Stanley. I'm surprised by this. They are currently in 21st place at the time of recording this video by 1 goal difference, so that just goes to show how tight it is down there, and Accrington Stanley could stay up or go down by the thinnest of margins. Next up, the teams who are surviving, we'll start with 20th place, which is MK Dons. MK Dons have had a pretty poor season, obviously very disappointing when you think how close they were to getting to the championship last year, but there still is hope that MK Dons will be able to survive this year. At this moment in time, they are one of those teams in that bottom four, but they're only a point away from survival, and the bookies think MK Dons will be the team to just get over the line out of that bottom five down there. If you're an MK Dons fan, do you agree? Do you think you'll just be able to survive this season? Because it's going to be close if it stays like this. Just above them, we find Cheltenham, who are currently 19th in the table at the time recording this. They're just about churning out enough points to just get over the line this season, but they're sat in a very uncomfortable position in 19th, where if 1 or 2 teams below them go on a good run, they could be sitting ducks getting pulled into that bottom four. Cheltenham Town have obviously got a couple of good players. They pulled out a couple of good results this season. It's just about getting over the line this season, and I think they might be able to. The bookies do think so as well. 18th place is Burton Albion, another team like Cheltenham who are sat above that bottom four, but only a few points clear of it. Burton Albion are 4 points above that bottom four at the time of recording this video. Obviously, Burton Albion have the potential to go on a good run and run away from it, and there also is that potential that the bottom four could really stink it out in the final run-in and really not pick up that many points. So Burton Albion do look more likely to survive than go down at this moment in time. If you're a Burton fan, share your thoughts. The bookies think you're staying up. The final team we'll mention in terms of staying up are Oxford United in 17th place. Oxford United are a team we associate pushing for the playoffs and promotion to the championship, but this season has been a real write-off, especially in the last few weeks. Their form is one of the poorest in the division, and they're currently only 5 points above that bottom four. If the poor form continues, they will get sucked into this, but surely Oxford United do have enough about them to pull out a few results and just limp over the line at a minimum this season. They cannot afford to go down to League Two. The bookmakers do think they will survive though. Next up are the 4 teams above that, and we'll start with 16th place Fleetwood Town, which I think is quite harsh from the bookies at the moment. Fleetwood Town have actually been pretty good in the league recently, and obviously went on a very good FA Cup run as well, knocking out Sheffield Wednesday and even pushing Burnley right until the end. Fleetwood Town are a very underrated team, and I'm not entirely surprised that the bookmakers are writing them off yet again, because they currently sit 11th, but the bookmakers have them down in 16th. Next up, 15th place, we find Bristol Rovers. It's fantastic to see Bristol Rovers back in League One. They're a good club and a very good fan base as well, and I thought they were fantastic towards the end of the League Two campaign last year. They've been a bit inconsistent for me this season. I think a few months ago we were talking about Bristol Rovers being one of those teams that were on the outside of the playoff conversation. Now it doesn't look particularly likely. Bristol Rovers currently find themselves 18 points off that top 6, so certainly not keeping the pace, but they are 10 points clear of that bottom 4. For a first season back in League One, to consolidate like Bristol Rovers have done is very good. Obviously the consistency is annoying for the Bristol Rovers fans, but there's been good flashes and good signs, and it could be a season to build on for the Gas. Next up, in 14th place, you find Port Vale. Port Vale, another team I'm glad to see back in League One. We said how amazing they were to get through the playoffs in League Two last year, and kind of similar to Bristol Rovers with their inconsistency this year. They were a team once again a couple months ago that were on the outside and on the fringes of the playoff conversation, but currently find themselves 19 points off that top 6, so it really does not look likely. On the plus side, Port Vale are 9 points above that bottom 4, so in my opinion they look comfortable to survive in League One this season, and for a first season back after a promotion from League Two, it's pretty good and maybe something to build on for Port Vale as well. In 13th place we have Exeter City, another team that got promoted from League Two last year. Exeter City came up in 2nd place and they had a very good start to the season and there was very good flashes from their team, but the playoff dream does seem to have slowly slipped away for Exeter City. They are now 17 points off that top 6, so unless there's an incredible run from Exeter City, I think we know they're going to be playing in League One next season. So the bookmakers have gone for Exeter City to finish mid-table in their first season back in League One. If you're an Exeter fan, are you happy or sad with that? We'll move on to the top half, starting with 12th place, which is Lincoln City. Lincoln City have surprised me a little bit this season. With some games I've been pretty impressed from them, but the reason they are 18 points off that top 6 currently is because they have drawn 17 games this season. Obviously they look very comfortable to stay up this season and probably finish in mid-table, and if they can get into the top half that'd be great, but that top 6 dream doesn't seem very likely at the moment. But with all said and done, it's not impossible Lincoln City could get into the top 10, and I think that'd be a fantastic season for Lincoln, and there may be another team that could build on from that next season. Next up we'll go for 11th place, which is Charlton Athletic. Once again they're 18 points off that top 6 at the moment. I was very impressed with Charlton's cup run in the Carabao Cup competition, especially when they knocked out Brighton on penalties, and even against Manchester United I thought Charlton held their own, and we're only losing 1-0 going into the 90th minute, which I think is very good against a very good Manchester United team this season. Charlton are a team I'd love to see back in the Championship, but the inconsistency has probably killed their hopes of the top 6 this season. But to be fair, if they can still finish in the top 10, it'd be a pretty good season from the Alex. Next up, 10th place, we have Shrewsbury Town. Shrewsbury Town are probably the team that has surprised the most people this season. They've actually gone on a very good run recently and only find themselves 8 points off that top 6. Yes, the teams in the top 6 are all playing really well, and for Shrewsbury to get in there does look a very hard task at the moment, but it's not impossible. And as a Coventry City fan, I can say I know a couple of Shrewsbury Town's players. Jordan Shipley always comes to mind. He's a fantastic player, and I've got to say Shrewsbury Town have just impressed me on most occasions I've seen them this season. This is a really impressive season, and once again one to build on. Could Shrewsbury be a team we see in the Championship in the next couple of years? It's not impossible the way they're building that club at the moment. Next up, in 9th place we find Portsmouth Football Club, currently 11 points off that top 6. They had a pretty rubbish middle of the season, obviously changed the manager as well, but they have pulled out some good results recently. Do I think they'll make the top 6? At this moment in time, I don't think so. The bookies do have them to finish 9th, and if Portsmouth can finish in that top 9 or top 8 this season, that'd be fantastic considering all that's gone on, and once again they're a team that are probably starting to look towards next season. 8th place we've got Peterborough United. Now we're coming on to the teams that have a pretty good chance of making that top 6, albeit at the moment it does seem more likely Peterborough would miss out than make the top 6, but they are currently only 8 points off that top 6, and they've been pulling out some really good results recently. The recent 5-2 win against Plymouth Argyle, and we all know the threat that Peterborough United carry when it comes to going forward. It's do or die now for Peterborough United. They might as well go out and try and win as many games as they can to give themselves a chance of getting into that top 6. It's not impossible. Let's see if the Posh can make it. In 7th place are Wycombe Wanderers. Wycombe currently sit 6 points off that top 6 and once again have a very good chance of getting in there, and they have put in some very good performances when they've played other teams in that top 6 this season. It would be a fantastic story for Wycombe to get into the top 6 again this season, considering they've obviously lost Gareth Ainsworth. Wycombe Wanderers can be a solid team that even the best teams in this division can struggle to break down. I think they've got a chance of making that top 6. The bookies have put them 7th. So then on to the top 6 itself. The bookmakers have gone for Bolton Wanderers to come in 6th place at this moment in time. They are currently a couple places higher than 6th, but they have played a lot more games than everyone else. At this moment in time, they are projecting to finish on around 80 points this season, which is absolutely enough to get into the top 6 in League One. They just need to shake off a couple teams that are chasing them in the top 6 conversation, and if they were to go on another good run in the next couple of weeks, they might even get themselves back into that top 2 argument. But at this moment in time, the bookmakers have Bolton Wanderers in 6th. Now in 5th place, the bookmakers have gone for Barnsley. I think this is a big call when you consider the games in hand Barnsley have. Barnsley also have to play Plymouth Argyle at Oakwell, and we all know that Plymouth are better when they're at home. I think Barnsley have a very strong chance of making the top 2 this season, but currently the bookmakers have them in 5th place. If you're a Barnsley fan, do share your thoughts. I've been very impressed by Barnsley when I've seen them this season, especially in the recent weeks. That 3-1 win against Derby most recently was very impressive. So, can Barnsley finish in that top 2? The bookmakers have them currently 5th. Next up, we have Derby County in 4th place. Derby County were always going to be a tricky team to predict at the start of this season, but I've got to say, despite all the change and all the off-field stuff, Derby County have been an impressive team for most of this season. They currently sit on 60 points with 33 games played, and it's also possible Derby County could be fighting for the top 2 this season. They also have to play Plymouth Argyle, and that could be a game which decides if Derby County are actually in the top 2 conversation. It'll really test their mettle. Once again, Derby County are a team I'm confident will get into that top 6. I wouldn't rule them out of the top 2. The bookmakers have put them 4th. On to 3rd place, and this is controversial. The bookmakers have gone for Plymouth Argyle. I must say though, I'm not actually surprised, because I have been following the bookmakers' predictions for the last few weeks, and they keep having Ipswich ahead of Plymouth Argyle, despite Plymouth being ahead of Ipswich. Plymouth Argyle fans, do be sure to share your thoughts on this. Do you agree with the bookmakers that Plymouth might be able to slip out, or do you think you're going to prove the bookmakers wrong? Because it wouldn't surprise me if Plymouth do wrap up that top 2. They've been very impressive this season, Plymouth Argyle, albeit their last 2 results have been a draw and in that 5-2 defeat at Peterborough. They do need to bounce back from that, and they've got some very big games coming. Derby at home and then Barnsley away. If they can at least keep the gap the same over the next 3, 4, 5 weeks, then Plymouth Argyle are looking pretty good to wrap up the top 2, and they might even do it before May, which would be very reassuring for the Plymouth Argyle fans. Ipswich Town, the Tractor Boys, are 2nd in the bookmakers' predictions. As I say, I'm not surprised by this, because the bookmakers have fancied Ipswich to do quite well through this season, even when Ipswich had a pretty poor run of form. At this moment in time, Ipswich Town have actually won back-to-back games. The draws have really killed them this season. 12 draws is quite a lot for a team that's pushing for the top 2, but they are currently only 5 points off Plymouth Argyle, and if they can get through the next few games having shut the gap even more, then they could really apply some pressure on this Plymouth team. It's not impossible Ipswich can make the top 2, and it's what the bookmakers are going for. Ipswich fans, share your thoughts. So then, on to the top team, Sheffield Wednesday. No surprises. I think everyone fancies Sheffield Wednesday to win this league at this moment in time. Sheffield Wednesday currently have an 8-point gap over 3rd place, with a game in hand as well. Sheffield Wednesday are soaring through the sky, and like I say, it doesn't feel like they've lost a game in absolutely ages. Darren Moore has done a fantastic job with this Sheffield Wednesday team, especially when you think back to last season and the disappointment of the playoff semi-final defeats to Sunderland. Sheffield Wednesday look very ready for the Championship. I think they could take the Championship by storm next season. Darren Moore has got this team going up, and the bookmakers have them to finish 1st, and I completely agree. Sheffield Wednesday fans, do share your thoughts as well. So then guys, that wraps up the bookmakers 1 to 24 League One predictions at this moment in time in March. Do be sure to share your thoughts down below. Let's go for 199 likes, and do make sure to subscribe for more League One content. I will see you all in the next video. Peace out.